Welcome to the Aaron Harber Show. This is part two of a two-part series with former Congressman Mickey Edwards. We're talking about campaigns and reform and politics. Let's get right to the heart of some of these issues that you write about in your new book and discuss what are some of the solutions that you think would really make a difference and why.
Well, yeah, let's start with two of the big reforms in the election process. Besides money, we've talked about money. We have a system now that the parties have created where you have party primaries that are closed to people who are not in the party. And so you have a situation like the one we had in Delaware, which I talked about in the first segment, where 30,000 voters were able to keep Mike Castle off the ballot for 1 million people. In Utah, where there's 3 million people and 3,500 went to a convention, and then their Senator Robert Bennett cannot be on the ballot. So if you have open primaries, which Washington State has adopted, California has adopted, which now say everybody who wants to run for that office is on the same ballot. You still have to qualify, though, by signatures or whatever you have to do to get on the ballot. But everybody on the ballot, Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Greens, Socialists, whatever it is all on one ballot. And every single registered voter in that constituency gets to choose. And then you have a runoff between the top two. So even in a place like in California, where you ended up in this primary, 2 Democrats finished at the top of the open primary. So the choice was between 2 Democrats. But because every single voter in that constituency gets to vote, it has to be whichever one can appeal to the independents or to the Republicans who no longer have somebody on the ballot. It's the one who reaches out to represent the entire community is the one more likely to be elected. And so you break the hold of these hyper-partisan ideologues who now decide who can be on the ballot.
Right, let me play devil's advocate just for a minute. All right, so you're in a state like California, heavily Democratic.
Yeah.
So when you go to the general election under those circumstances, voters have a choice between 2 Democrats.
In that particular case.
All right. So isn't that a potential defect in a system, especially if a state is heavily weighted one way? Or is it? Because that means that in the general election, you're not going to have the odds are 2 substantially different perspectives to choose from.
I'm not interested in giving a choice between the 2 private clubs. I want all the citizens to be able to choose among all the people who are available. I want to stop thinking in terms of R and D. I want to start thinking in terms of Californians or Oregonians, Americans, and let the people have a choice among all of the possible representatives they could have. So
actually, I think a better counter argument to what I said would be, if you're in a state that's overwhelmingly one party anyway, having a Republican and Democratic choice isn't really a choice because the overwhelming party is going to win. So why not so there's actually more choice if you have the opportunity to choose potentially between 2 people who are from the same party, because one of them is going to win anyway.
And who have to appeal to a broader electorate to do that. That's right. Then you take districting.
See, I'm always willing to argue against myself.
Yes, well, look what happened. So the other thing is, California and Washington both did this too, and that is to take away from the state legislators, the leaders in the legislature, the ability to shape congressional districts. And they created nonpartisan independent redistricting commissions. 13 states have those now. Well, here's what happened in California, bigger than most countries. As soon as it was decided that you were going to have nonpartisan redistricting, and you couldn't just appeal to your base, 12 members of the California delegation, nearly 1/4 of the largest delegation, retired. Because they couldn't rely on their base. They were going to have to appeal to the whole broad general electorate. And that gives us, that's why the book is talking about governance by Americans, not by party, affiliation. So that's one of the solutions, and the money we talked about. But it's not just the election system. It's not just the, by the way, this election system we have, it wasn't on the tablets that Moses got. It's not in the Constitution. It came out of the Progressive Party movement of the late 1800s, early 1900s. It's not something etched in stone. But you also have that inside the Congress, when Barack Obama was elected, Mitch McConnell, the leader of one of the major political parties in the United States Senate, and we were at two wars. We had people who were out of their homes. We had bridges falling down. What is your big goal? Defeat Barack Obama. So Nancy Pelosi, who's a good friend of mine, but Nancy Pelosi becomes Speaker of the House. So she's interviewed on NPR and she's asked, "You're now the Speaker of the House. What is your goal? We're at war. We have people who are out of losing their homes. We have, what's your big goal? To elect more Democrats." I mean, give me a break. All they're doing is talking about what helps my club. Did you know? Maybe you do. You know almost everything. I don't know if you knew this. Did you know that the Speaker of the House does not have to be a member of the House?
They can elect anyone they want.
Anyone they want.
Yeah.
They could say, we want to bring Michael Bloomberg in to govern it. In Canada, the Speaker of the House is nonpartisan. In Great Britain, to be elected Speaker of the House of Commons, you have to have one third or 1/4, I don't remember which, of your nominations have to come from members of another party, and then you withdraw from your party after you're elected to be Speaker. We should not have leaders of our legislature who are thinking only in terms of party advantage. If you were in the House and you wanted to be on Ways and Means, I would say, look, here's what I know about you. You're very smart. You know a lot about economics. You know a lot about tax policy. You would be perfect on Ways and Means. And we'll put you there if you commit in advance that here are the 4 things that are really important to the party. And if you commit in advance, you haven't seen the bills yet, you don't know the current circumstances when they come up, you have not heard a single witness, but we want you to commit in advance that you're going to vote this way. Otherwise, you don't get the committee position. Great. Why did we let that happen? So why don't you put people on committees by seniority or by having a drawing? They're all equally members of Congress if we think of them as American members of Congress instead of dividing. Here, I can tell you one funny story. If you or any member in your audience were to walk into a room to give a speech, there would be a lectern stand there for you to stand at, and you would address the whole broad group. Not in the U.S. House of Representatives. There is a lectern here for a Democrat to stand at in front of the Democrats, one for a Republican to stand at to talk to the Republicans. One of my first speeches in the House, I thought, I'm going to persuade the Democrats. And I went and stood at the lectern in front of the Democrats looking at them, and there was this gasp. My God, he's speaking at the wrong lectern. Well, I'm going to get cooties if I touch a Democrat lectern or whatever. It's idiotic. We're one country, and the way we run the lawmaking branch of our government is a crime. We do it as a way to make compromise, coming together, solving problems almost impossible.
All right, and on that note, we'll take a break and then come back with Congressman Mickey Edwards.
Coming up next.
Liberals seem to believe the government ought to be able to do anything that we think would be cool. Conservatives seem to think, the government's not allowed to do anything. The founders wanted limits on government, but they wanted a government.